Hello, Coppell ISD families. My name is Dina Dinas. I'm the Executive Director of Teaching and Learning for the Coppell Independent School District. And today I'm going to explain a little bit about our screening procedures for kindergarten and first grade GT assessment. That window is opening today, September 25th, 2017. The anchor for the screening procedures in Coppell ISD are grounded in the state plan for the education of gifted and talented students, which you can find on the TEA website should you be interested. It is the guiding document for our service design as well as our assessment. In 2013, the CISD GT program underwent a program evaluation, and that further informs the implementation of our assessment practices and our service design models. Elementary GT services in Coppell ISD are based on a tiered model, meaning that the service changes as the need of the learner changes. On the left side of the graphic, which you can find on the GT website at www.coppellisd.com, you can see that Tier 1, 2, and 3 are about supporting learners who require remediation. We're not going to talk about that portion too much, but that is based on a federal program called Response to Intervention, and that's for learners who perhaps have a struggle of some sort. Tier 1 instruction for the purposes of our conversation today are based on learners needing to have grade level content. So that's that center green section. At Tier 1, that's just good classroom instruction for all learners, whether they are identified gifted and talented or not. At Tier 2 is where you begin to see learners' identification, those learners requiring gifted services. Here, you will see our GTi specialists at the 10 elementary campuses pushing into the classroom and co-planning and co-facilitating learning with classroom educators that have a cluster of learners who have been identified gifted and talented. Obviously, that currently exists in our first grade classrooms, but wouldn't exist in our kindergarten classrooms as those learners are new to us. At Tier 3, you would see learners who are also identified gifted and talented who may require more intensive intervention. In this case, we might be talking about multi-age instruction, or we might be talking about acceleration in one form or another. But again, Tier 2 and Tier 3 services are all about learners who are identified gifted and talented. And that's what we screen for at 4 grade levels at the elementary in Coppell. Our end goal, of course, is that all learners will grow 1 year's worth of academic ability for 1 year's worth of instruction. As I alluded to on the previous slide, all kindergarten and first grade learners in the Coppell Independent School District are automatically screened for GT services, so there's never any need to nominate a learner or refer a learner for GT assessment. That's going to happen automatically at those grade levels. At kindergarten, we use as many criteria as possible in order to identify a learner, including planned experiences that I'll talk about just a little bit more. In first grade, we also utilize planned experiences, and those are co-facilitated by the GT educator as well as the classroom educator. If you have an older child who's gone through the Coppell Independent School District, then it may be worthy to note that beginning in the fall of 2014, we did change our screening practices for kindergarten learners. We no longer administer a standardized assessment at the kindergarten level. We found that over-identification was a challenge that we were facing, so instead we began utilizing a series of planned experiences that are co-facilitated by the kindergarten classroom educator and the gifted and talented interventionist at each campus. Those experiences are designed to have behaviors that are markers for gifted and talented identification bubble up. So some examples might be advanced vocabulary, a sophisticated sense of humor, perhaps a deep level of empathy or a defined sense of justice, an interesting perspective. All of those things can be indicators or markers at these early grade levels. The next year, in 2015, we began screening first grade learners in the exact same way, and those are the processes that are still in place now. In first grade, in addition to planned experiences, we may then choose to administer a standardized assessment to learners who have some of those behaviors that have bubbled up. Here's a more comprehensive list of things that we're looking for through those series of experiences: a sense of humor, advanced language, sensitivity, perspective, analytical thinking, meaning, motivation, and accelerated learning. The procedures and the experiences that we're using are standardized and vetted to some extent, and so these are not internal experiences that have been created here in the school district. While the planned experiences do tell us a great deal about whether a learner would require the services that we provide, we may also request additional assessment, and at some point may be leveraging a standardized assessment. This is no different than the procedures we utilized prior to 2014. We just do them in a little bit of a different order so that we can bring on our classroom educators, those that are closest to the learners, in the identification process. As I said earlier, the planned experiences began today on September 25th in both kindergarten and first grade classrooms, and will continue through our window, which ends on December 8th. Those planned experiences will be scored by our gifted and talented educators. They are blind scored. The educator on the campus who helped facilitate the experience will not be the educator who actually scores those experiences. They will be blind scored in teams of 2 by other GT specialists in a series of our meetings over the course of the fall and into the early spring. The gifted and talented committees on each campus, which are made up of a counselor, an administrator, and at least 3 educators that have their 30 hours in gifted and talented education and training, will convene in the early spring to determine which learners have demonstrated a need for the service that we provide. Parents at both kindergarten and first grade, you will be notified of the committee's decision prior to March 1st. As it is our practice in the Coppell Independent School District to actively look for and identify GT needs in our classrooms, learners at 3rd and 5th grade are also universally screened for gifted and talented services. Questions about these procedures can be directed to me, Dina Dinas, Executive Director of Teaching and Learning. You can send me an email at ddinas@coppellisd.com. We look forward to getting to know your learners and interacting with them over the course of the fall as we look to identify needs that they have and how we might best serve them. It is important to remember that the point person for conversations regarding your learner's particular needs here in the fall would be your learner's classroom educator and not the GT specialist. Again, if you have any questions, please contact me, and we look forward to working with your learners.